Hey everybody, how you doing? Alexx Calise here, and thank you so much for tuning into the pod. Today we have a really great show for you. I have a very special guest, Mr. Daniel McGuffey. He's an amazing musician, he's an artist, he's basically a mixed media guru. So everybody please give a round of applause. Round of applause for Mr. Daniel McGuffey. Yay! We'll insert the applause later.
Okay, good.
Okay, how you doing today?
Pretty good, thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for making the trek from Sherman Oaks to Sherman Oaks.
To South Sherman Oaks.
Exactly.
Yeah, came all the way across the valley for this.
I know that's true friendship there.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about obviously your journey as a musician, but what really intrigued me about you especially was the fact that you're an artist. And I've seen that you've done a lot of graphics for the band. You know, we share them on social media. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that just because we'll get to the music stuff a little bit later. This is a little bit different than we normally talk about on my show. So I would love to, kind of get some insight into your process and how you got into all that stuff.
Yeah, sure. I would say drawing's probably the first thing I ever did. It was probably the first thing where anybody ever said, "Oh, that's good," and I went, "Oh, you like me now? I'm gonna keep doing this." So I think that's like a constant theme in my life is like, "Oh, I got validation for this. I'm gonna do it forever now." But I did enjoy it. I think it was like, I was a very introverted, uh, geeky kid, and drawing was like the first escape. It was the first go in your room and get some pen and paper and draw some comic book heroes or some Mega Man robots. And yeah, I was just very obsessed with cartoons in the 80s and 90s and comic books and Super Nintendo. And I just loved those characters. And drawing was the first thing that, kind of came naturally. Um, and then I went and studied animation after high school, which is something I'll never understand why kids go to school when they're 18 and like, I know what I want to do. Like, really? I'm still figuring that out,
Right.
But I got into Photoshop in 1999 when I think it was like
Yeah.
version 2.0 or something. And I've just always had Photoshop and Adobe products and pen and paper it's kind of like where everything starts. Everything
Hmm.
starts with a doodle or a drawing. I get obsessed with some idea and just so art's always been a thing. And um, yeah, but music's been probably the most constant thing that I'm like, all right, I'm going to pour a little more effort into this. But I need all of those different outlets. I don't feel like I could do one thing. I'll never pick one thing and be like, this is the thing I do. And sometimes I like beat myself up about that. I'm like, dude, you should just focus on this one. And other people say it too, like, you gotta do this one thing. I'm like, yeah, but I'm gonna do 9 things.
You know what? I kind of disagree in certain ways because that has been, at least for myself, being versatile, sorry, excuse me. That has been very beneficial for my career, at least I found, because yeah, I can play music. That's my first love, my main love, but I also have a foundation like with I can do photography, I can do my own editing, I can do like a variety of other things. So you can actually make those things work together. And nowadays,
Yeah.
especially being a content creator, you have to do all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of feel that way. I'm like, oh, now's my time.
Mm-hmm.
Now's the time for like the past 25 years of learning how to draw and take pictures and edit video and animate and write music. And like, I'm like, oh, okay, now this is the golden era for people making their own stuff. And the truth is, I just get bored.
Yeah.
Like, I'll get really bored of drawing something and I got to step away. And I'm like, oh, now music's exciting, or now writing is exciting. I need those breaks. I need like different things to jump to so I don't get super burnt out on any one thing.
Right. And I think that's pretty healthy, and I think that's what a lot of successful people end up doing. Having all of those other interests helps you to, I don't know, appreciate that goal a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know?
I think they all add like a little fuel to the fire of each
Yeah.
other. And it's like I said, it makes it they're these lily pads that it's like, oh, now this one's exciting to jump to because I've missed being away from this song or having band practice and now I'm stoked to go there. And I'm definitely over the like guilt of beating myself up for not being like, why aren't you just a prolific songwriter who's put out 300 songs? I'm like, I don't know, man. It's just not, I'm just not that guy, and that's okay. And it's like a war of attrition for me. It's like, just keep doing the things. And by the time you're like, if you live long enough, if you live to 80 years old, think of how much stuff you'll have made by then, just by like,
Right.
just by virtue of not quitting, which is like something I always struggle with of like, am I going to quit this? I can't quit these things. I'm just going to keep doing them.
Right. And that's the only way you get better. You hope to get better after all of that time. We were talking actually earlier about Rick Beato and how, obviously he had credits before doing all of this production and working with all of these fantastic artists, but he actually became even more popular. I think it was during the pandemic. His channel really blew up and he really came into the public consciousness.
Mm,
And he was an older guy. Back in the day, I mean, I remember thinking too, after the age of 25, if I haven't made it, then I'll never make it. And
yeah.
I think that's really changed.
Oh, yeah, totally. And what does making it even mean, right? Like,
Yeah.
what is making it even these days? Like, that's up to you. It's up to us to figure out, like, this is what I want. These are and it's not dependent on what somebody else has, how somebody else has made it for them. It's like, what is making it for me? What does my day look like? What do I want to do? What is actually fulfilling for me?
Hmm.
And sometimes like art gets so wrapped up in ego that it's not fulfilling. It's just a something you can become compelled to do because you feel like you're supposed to, and you're just pushing yourself unnaturally. So we get to determine what making it is, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah, because if you're spending your entire life just grinding and grinding and grinding, then it becomes a job. And that's not originally what you signed up for?
Yeah. I've had the habit of turning everything in my life into a job.
Hmm.
Like, especially in this day and age, it's hard not to, where as soon as you pick up a new hobby and you're like, I enjoy this, how do I make money with it?
Hmm.
It's like, wait a minute, can I just enjoy anything? Can this just be for me?
Right.
You know?
I'm actually glad that you brought that up because I was having that conversation the other day and everything has to become a side hustle now. You kind of have to do a billion things in order just to buy groceries anymore. But yeah, I mean, even just something simple like I'm a girl, so therefore we like to shop. So I used to like going to thrift stores. And now I go because, oh, it's going to be $2 Saturday. So I better, get a whole bunch of things so I can flip them on eBay.
Yeah.
And it's just what I can't just go and enjoy myself. There always has to be a bigger picture or
Yeah,
something.
totally. Yeah. And I'm surrounded by people that see me doing things and then are like, bro, you got to make a class on this. Like, like
Hmm.
maybe it's like meal prep or something, which is one of my favorite things to do is to cook. It is probably the best like decompressing experience I have to just get in the kitchen and work. And people are like, you got to make more money from doing this. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh no, do I? Like,
Yeah, it's like, but I like it.
yeah.
Speaking of cooking, because it is such a thing that you love, have you ever tried doing that for other people?
I would say that is definitely something. I don't even post pictures of the food I make on Instagram anymore. It's like, this is for me. I made this for calories to stay alive today. And or I want to make something for somebody else. Like I want to treat somebody.
Hmm.
And those are kind of like the only two functions it really serves. It's like totally practical and utilitarian, or it's experiencing and sharing something with somebody else. But I did follow that thread for a while and cooked in kitchens for a little over 3 years. And that was a really transformative. It was like the dumbest and best decision I ever made.
Was it anything like the bear?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So I think the reason the Bear is so good, I haven't seen the third. There's a third season, I think.
Yeah, it's oh God, it's just beautiful.
Yeah,
The cinematography, everything about it, and working in catering in the past, I'm like, wow, that's true.
it nails a lot of it.
Yeah.
It nails like how you got to be a total sociopath to run a kitchen, or just like that's your life, that's what you do. There's a lot of like amazing details they get with like the crew is drinking out of deli cups, those
Yeah.
4 cup plastic
Yeah.
containers. Like you can tell that whoever wrote it clearly spent time in a kitchen environment. But um, Bourdain was the reason I got obsessed with it. I would just watch Parts Unknown and be like, yeah, I want to do that. And
Right.
I did for a while. And it was I worked for My chef was a Marine. And I feel like it was the first time in my life where I had a job where I could not hide. Like I couldn't, everything did was going to be seen. Every plate I put up was going to be scrutinized. And he was he had a lot of self discipline and he demanded discipline in his kitchen. And it was the first time I'd kind of had that work environment. I'm well into my 30s at this point, but it was the first time I had that kind of work environment where I couldn't dick around and I couldn't like disguise my failures, and it really, really taught me a lot. It made me like a more self-disciplined. I was proud of the work I was doing. I don't know how people. It was very hard to live on the pay,
Mm.
extremely hard, and that is I feel like a young men and women's game. Because there were like kids just run. I was doing my best, and they were just like kids in the kitchen running circles around me. It's like, damn. It was humbling. It was so humbling because I'm like, I got to see myself start at the bottom of something again, like a little later in life, and I got to see. Ultimately, I got to grow a lot, and I got good at a bunch of stuff, and was really proud of myself and saw myself developing. But it just exposed to me how much I didn't know, like how much I didn't know about this trade, how different it is from TV, how much I didn't know about myself. It exposed a lot of weaknesses in myself, physically, emotionally, financially. Like, damn, it was just such a transformative experience, and I'm super glad I did it for those reasons. But like, it broke me, like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, well, sometimes you kind of have to do that in life, and start over. Was there something that prompted your decision to do that?
I was just like I said, I think I was in love with Bourdain, and coming home to cook from work was like one of the things I was looking most forward to each day. Like,
Hmm.
what am I gonna make when I get home from work? And I was working in a more corporate environment, which I've learned is not um, probably not where I do my best work. I think I'll just say it that way. I think I need a more um, physical, frantic pace to my life.
Hmm.
I'm a pretty high strung, anxious person. My heart beats fast, and I like physical work on my feet. And I really just felt like something was calling me to it,
Hmm.
and I needed to give it a shot. I needed to challenge myself. I didn't really know that at first. Something just felt kind of right about it, and I was ready for a change. And I would say, like, as a result of doing that, that's been about probably like 10 years ago that I made that decision. I would say that I'm just like way less afraid of day to day life
Hmm.
for that reason. It taught me uh, once I had a bag of knives, I could probably go anywhere and get work. And I'm not even like exceptional by any means. I'm just like competent enough to do the job. But it taught me like, you can take this skill, it's very transferable.
Hmm.
You could potentially move to another country where you don't speak the language and get by because the cooks you're surrounded by are that way. They have the skill, they don't know the language, and they're just like crushing it. And it showed me it really taught me to look at things differently. It taught me to look at everything as like a trade, and it would the like mystique of it being an art kind of vanished from me pretty quickly.
Right.
It's like, oh, no, 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 this is a trade. People work really hard at it. They learn all the different ins and outs of it, and it showed me like, oh, so I can do that. I can. I guess what I'm saying is it was like the first time I became aware of the concept of a growth mindset of like, no, 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 no. There's not like just this insane talent that dictates that you're going to be good at this thing. It's like you can get good at anything if you do the reps because you're literally making the same dish thousands of times. It's like, oh wow, I can really make this dish now. And I kind of started looking at everything in my life of like what happens if I put in reps and just do this thing consistently instead of thinking I have to be the best.
Right. Well, speaking of reps, you're super into fitness. Was that something that you have always been into?
No, definitely not. I would say I think I've only really been serious about it for maybe the past like 3 or 4 years. And again, that comes as a result of just continuing to do it and learning little things here and there and finding out like, oh, I was doing this thing wrong. And I think having goals in mind of this is what I want to get to, this is the size I want to be or the weight or um the routines I want to have. and just continuing to do it. But no, I would say it probably started from a place of just being really unhealthy in my life.
Hmm.
Um, I was just in a place where um, I didn't feel good about myself and would do anything to start feeling better about myself. And I think the gym is the first thing that I knew. One of the first things I tried, probably, 7 or 8 years ago in my life when I was at like a crossroads where once I tried it, I knew that this is a part of my life now. This makes me feel better about myself because um, I made an effort.
Right.
I made an effort, and that's still the most important part of it to me is not like the result, but like, am I trying to be consistent with this thing? And did I make the effort? Because even though I don't always like going, I always like having gone.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I'll always leave there like I tried today.
Oh yeah, like I can't think of one instance where I'm like, oh man, I totally like shouldn't have gone to the gym today. Like, have you ever said that to yourself?
Yeah, and sometimes it's like you just even if you didn't like crush it, you just went for 15 minutes and
Yeah.
you did one thing. It's like, okay, that's the way it is some days. You still made it.
Hmm.
You still did a little bit, and that's okay. I'm just like all about trying to be a lot kinder and gentler with myself these days.
Especially when we're younger, I think we all do this. What could I be doing? I'm not doing enough. And we should be asking questions of ourselves like, why am I beating myself up so much? And why do we do that? I wonder. So
Yeah,
many of us do that are creatives.
I think if I'm honest, it's really crept up on me more in the past like decade than it ever has before. I know part of that's just the what we're constantly bombarded with and exposed to is like other people's greatness. And I think the other obvious answer is like it goes back to childhood. It goes back to like what are the first things we experienced and how did we get validation and a sense of feeling safe and secure? Because that's what it always comes back to, right? Is it's like if I do this, if I solidify X, Y, and Z and build this and succeed at this and achieve this, then I will be safe, loved, and happy, right?
Right.
It probably always comes back to that. And then you actually do start to check off some of those boxes and get this thing that you wanted, whether it's like internal or external. And you're like, yeah, I feel a little better, but it's still not that thing I was looking for because ultimately deep down, I just want to feel like I'm okay. I'm good enough.
Right. Like I'm wondering also like in terms of validation if that's what makes some of the best artists, the people that are constantly seeking that validation because there's always something that they're working toward. Like I'm working toward obviously my art, but I'm working for you to like me.
Yeah.
I wonder if that plays into it a bit.
I gotta say, just as I've learned more about myself, I I come from a place of I want to find stuff more from a place of comfort, of I enjoy this and this makes me feel good, other than like I have to prove something or achieve something because that's just not sustainable.
I think that's coming into play for a lot of like the Gen Z population. You know, they're constantly seeking validation, like especially when they're putting out like all of these videos all the time. And if you're not getting those likes and those comments back, I just see it amongst the younger population. It's almost like they crumble and they need that
Yeah.
validation.
Yeah, I totally understand. I'm very um guilty of that too. I don't use social media a lot anymore. I'm always trying to find that balance or like, do I need to use this? Or because that's like what we're told, right? Like, no, you need to use it. And I go back and forth of like, do I? But I promise you, anytime I post something, I refresh 1,000 times a day.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we've been conditioned to do that, but actually, this brings up a good point. I loved this campaign that you did recently for your band, in which you were just posting videos. I can't remember exactly how you framed it, but basically just doing these everyday tasks like cleaning a toilet or like doing the dishes, and you're like, I bet you that if I just post these types of things, I'll get more engagement.
We went out to dinner and we were just trying to decide, like, okay, what if we really tried to use this social media machine? All right, let's commit to it for 30 days. And Brian, our drummer, had the idea based on something else he saw. It might have been a trend at the time, but it was I have 30 days to prove to my teacher that something something. It was something about like I'm going to prove that I can build a following. we didn't necessarily like build the following, but we decided we're going to do something totally mundane that has nothing to do with our music every day. And I'll tell you that even just thinking of nothing is kind of hard. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, what do I do today? I'm like, and then so I just started looking at my life and I was like, well, what are you doing today? I'm like, today I need to clean my bathroom. Like, all right, dude, point a camera at it.
But hey, it worked because I'm like, I wonder what he's going to do today.
So interesting to hear that.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to hear that. And I'll tell you, I'll tell you what, it kind of like had an effect on me because for the first time in a very long time, I was letting people into my life, like my actual life. Like, here you go. This is me ironing or cleaning or making a sandwich or something, which meant that I was like revealing the inside of my apartment and into my room and the books I was reading. And it felt strangely personal and sincere at times in a way I like totally hadn't expected because it was just such a like, who cares exercise. But yeah, we did get like a lot of, I guess for us, like a lot of views on the reel. And did it help improve the song audience listenership? Like, I don't know, but it was kind of a valuable exercise. And I don't know, but the other side of it is like, I don't know what to do anymore for
Yeah.
like,
But I find that as a society, we've become like a little more voyeuristic because you're saying, I'm assuming you're in your later 30s because of how you framed that before.
I'm 42.
Okay. All right. So we're close in age. So I remember when I was trying to promote my bands years and years and years ago, it was almost better to just only post really super professional stuff.
Yeah.
Don't let people in, have a little bit of mystery to you. But now, at least from what I've seen of influencers all over, they're really letting people into their lives. So it's
Yeah.
kind of flipped. So I think people like yourself and like me who are older, like we have kind of a hard time grasping that. Picking up a phone and like videoing just normal everyday situations, that's not something that is innate in us. Like we didn't grow up filming stuff on our phones.
I kind of I understand where you're coming from, but I actually get it because I carried a video camera around my whole life because I was that guy.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
I moved to LA to make music videos like 20 years ago, so
Okay, so yeah, you're a completely different case,
but
but yes.
I would take a video camera to every show I ever saw I was living in Austin before I moved to LA, and I would go to emos and record every like punk and hardcore band that I was seeing, and I have a box in my bedroom of countless mini DV cassettes that have shows from Norma Jean and Poison the Well and Anne Berlin and
Oh
like
my gosh.
and there's some of that stuff is on YouTube like through other accounts. It's not my account, but the day YouTube went live, I was uploading like music videos and stuff I made. So the side I was on is I got really fatigued of it and didn't want to share my life anymore.
hmm
I got too much and was tired of sharing my life. I really, really withdrew for a long time and just tried to focus on what is my life? Who am I? And now I'm definitely embracing it again because the content I am drawn towards, that's such a weird word, content. I guess I never say it, but it feels weird coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Content. Like I like to think if like ACDC was making content today to
Yeah.
like
It's a weird concept.
could these great bands like sell them? So could Led Zeppelin utilize social media, or like would nobody care because they don't know how to make like a 15-second clip that like totally captures their audience? But the stuff I've gravitated towards I'm a huge YouTube fan. I don't have Netflix or Disney Plus. I have YouTube. That's it.
Okay.
I'm obsessed with it. The stuff I love is a man or woman sitting in front of the camera, almost unedited, telling you their experience about a subject. And I'm just like, give me more. Give
Oh
me
no,
more.
it's great, and I'm glad that there are people like yourself that are completely okay with that because even this podcast that we're talking on right now, I'm going to edit the crap out of it just because that's what I'm used to. But I do appreciate it when, people just have completely unadulterated conversations,
Yeah.
and I think over the years, I've been trying to let that go, that whole perfection thing that I have in my head.
I'm definitely a little more veering towards I just don't care
hmm
in the best way possible because I'm just a lot more okay with myself. and I'm not trying to like present or hide things for the most part. I think we all do it to a degree. We're trying to present our best self or say what we think somebody wants to hear. But I feel that I've gotten on the other side of that. And it's like one of the best things I've ever felt is like, no, 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 who you are is okay. So you don't have to try as hard. And every day is a little bit easier. And I feel that like even at work of like, oh, I'm just a more authentic person these days.
Mhm.
I'm not afraid of saying the wrong thing because I'm just doing my best. And I just love to see like raw, um, genuine people being like, here I am. This is what I like to talk about. And then it'll just be riveting how
Right.
some dude in Ohio is like, here's 45 minutes of unedited me talking about what am I into? Like, like maybe they're talking about their workout routine or their experience with uh, trying to think of things I'm like really into right now. Like, what's the algorithm feeding me? I'm obsessed with the pyramids. Like,
Oh,
I,
really?
I just want to be alive until we figure out how they got there and
Hmm.
what their true purpose was. So, like, YouTube's like, hey, here's a dude that has 2 hours of like straight unscripted Egyptology for you. And I'm just driving around, just like, I could not be more like compelled than I am right now.
Oh yeah, well, it was funny. Like we're both musicians, and we find ourselves watching, or I'm sorry, listening to podcasts all the time. That's all I listen to for the most part.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I know the music that I listen to, I can listen to it, whatever. But I love podcasts because I love listening to true crime. That's one of the things. I mean, I don't know why, but it's a chick thing. So many chicks like love hearing about like murder and true crime stuff. But
Uh,
um,
what is that? Why do women love true crime so much? Not that men don't, but why do so many, I feel like so many women.
I don't know. At least for myself, the psychology of it
Hmm.
is intriguing to me because, for myself, I could never even fathom killing another person, for example.
Okay.
So I find it interesting in that way. I love to get inside the brains of these people, like these psychopaths, because I want to know what makes them tick because I could just never fathom thinking that way,
Yeah.
you know?
Do you feel like it makes you more hyper vigilant in your life? Like does it give you a sense of unease or unwellness or wanting to look over your shoulder?
Um, well, at this point, like only because I've watched so
Okay.
many things, but I wouldn't say that. I just find it interesting.
Yeah.
I wish that I knew why.
Okay. I'll be honest with you. I get nervous saying this term, but I do love a good conspiracy theory.
Hmm.
I was just talking about pyramids a second ago, and but it always brings me to a place of just feeling not quite right,
Hmm.
of feeling kind of like dread and like just a general sense of unease. And it's like, why do I do that to myself? Why am I kind of torturing myself and um, bombarding my brain with like ultimately like negative or frightening kind of information? Do I gravitate towards that state of discomfort and anxiety? Because
Probably.
that's what I'm doing. Is I'm pumping myself up with um, anxiety when I listen to that kind of stuff, and I think like it's like, oh, maybe that's just I'm comfortable in discomfort.
I That's actually a really good point. I don't know if you or watch horror movies or anything, but it's the same thing. It's like you're getting that shot of like cortisol or something,
I
you
think
know?
I hate horror movies. Now I like some of the campy stuff
Hmm.
from the '80s with like goofy villains and stuff,
Yeah.
but like anything that is um, conceivable, anything that is like rooted somewhat in reality of like this could actually happen. I can't do it because and the same thing with like true crime podcasts is like this is something that actually happened. This is making my skin crawl. I can't really vibe with this.
No, I completely understand that. Like at least for me with horror, I'm not into the gore porn stuff
Yeah.
like Hostel or anything. Like there are certain things or body horror I cannot do it. I'll throw up. Like
Yeah.
it's disgusting. But I love like the paranormal stuff. I love the like the haunted
Oh yeah.
house
I
kind
can't
of
wait to
theme.
see the new Alien.
Oh my
But
God.
to me, that strikes a different chord. It's something
Yeah.
different about it because it's
That
like maybe the sci-fi element. I don't know.
well, definitely. I mean, and I could probably start an Alien podcast because that's my all-time favorite franchise.
Yeah,
If you go upstairs to my house, everything is Alien. Um, but yeah, it's a little bit different because that was a sci-fi horror movie, at least the first one,
yeah.
and then the second one was an action movie. It did have those scary elements, but it's just so fantastical you could never imagine something like that really happening.
Yeah, and it's just such an incredibly crafted movie. It's just so awesome to look at. The first one, anyways. The second one too. I haven't seen them all, but like those first two movies are just those are in my like top 10 for sure.
Oh, they're masterpieces.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's funny because I was telling you recently because Aliens is James Cameron. I'm like, you remind me of like a young Robert Patrick.
Oh, I've gotten that one a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few in the like rotation. Lately I've heard Diplo and he's like a super successful like DJ and producer. But I had to look him up.
I know the name. I don't know what he looks like.
I didn't know what he looked like either, but yeah, there's a few that I get and that's one of them.
Yeah, I could really see that. And then I was watching a show the other day and he popped up and I'm like, oh my God, he looks so much like him. It's too funny. Are there like any franchises like that you're really, really into since we're on the subject?
I would say no. No. What do I like? What the hell do I like? I mean, my favorite thing in life just like is always going to be the first 10 years of The Simpsons.
Oh, it's great stuff.
We talked a little bit about I'm a huge animation nerd.
Oh, okay.
So there's a couple series that I just can't get enough of and always want to talk about it. It's Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Oh, okay.
And
Heard of
then
it.
it's an anime. It's a masterpiece. It's only 26 episodes. You don't have to like anime to like it. It's just awesome. It's just like an awesome work of art, an awesome story. And then I like goofy Japanese superheroes like Ultraman.
Oh, yeah.
I like a dude in a rubber suit fighting a monster in another rubber suit. I like that campy stuff from the
Oh, like the old Godzilla movies are fantastic.
yeah. It's a handmade suit in a handmade city and two men. You just know there's two grown men in these like costumes and they're stomping on models that somebody meticulously spent days making, and it's just so wacky and fun.
Oh, yeah. Now watching like the new Godzilla movies, for example, it's just I don't know. They're not going enough one way or the other with it. Like the production value is insane, but
Yeah,
I really think that they should have leaned more into the camp with the new ones.
yeah,
What was it? The New Empire. I was just like, I don't know. It's too slick. I don't
yeah.
want to see two people like in the costumes fighting each other.
I mean, there's a level of goofiness, wackiness, charm, sincerity, and like overall, I guess like jankiness that I kind of gravitate towards with almost everything, like whether it's movies or music. But we're talking about Alien. I think James Cameron was on set posting gluing like styrofoam lunch containers to the wall to make the interior, the environments. It's just all like this handmade stuff and it looks so dope when it's like lit correctly.
Yeah.
And now we just like, should we try that? No, 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 no. Green screen. I know 500 guys overseas that are going to make this look realistic. I don't want realistic. I want something like very, human.
But the thing is, I don't think it's realistic enough. It looks like a video game to me. Like, I don't know if you saw the newest Godzilla, the New Empire. What I liked about Alien Romulus was the fact that Fede Alvarez, the director, is such a huge fan that he, even down to the title sequences, he was paying homage to the original Alien and he was using all practical effects. So I thought that was really cool because you look at those old movies like Alien and Aliens, they still hold up. Same
Oh
with
yeah.
Jurassic Park,
Yeah. I haven't seen it yet. I'm super stoked to, but yeah, can't wait.
You're gonna love it. So you grew up in Texas. What part of it was it again that you're from?
I grew up in a town called Marble Falls. It's maybe like 45 minutes outside of Austin.
Okay.
Yeah.
How would you say that it influenced your artwork and your music? Do you ever find that it makes its way in there?
Yeah, well, definitely. In so many ways. Well, like I said, I was a kid in my room drawing pictures, and that's because we lived like way outside of the city, in like a very isolated little community on dirt roads for the longest time, and there just wasn't much to do. I don't know if I know that's like a crazy thing to say these days, but we didn't have anything to do. We had like two Nintendo games, shout outs to Double Dragon and Duck Hunt, and you can only play those so much before you're like, I guess I'll try something else. But yeah, music was always around, and I would say, yeah, the older I get, the more I understand, my parents and the way they were, how they were, and that, I guess I still feel I can tap into like what it was like being a kid, because ultimately, like, you kind of carry that with you all the time, and figuring out who you were, what motivated you, why you did what you did, like that kind of stuff that I was doing when I was a little kid is kind of still at the core of me, and like
Right.
trying to embrace that.
Well, would you say that because you didn't always have a lot to do, that it inspired you to, I guess, use your brain a little bit more and be creative? Because I can say that at least for myself, I grew up in Florida, and there wasn't as much to do around then, not having phones that you could scroll social media with, for example. But do you think that allowed you, or it gave you the time to kind of hone your skills?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems I have now is not routinely getting into a state of deep focus with anything, because the whole thing about art is, or like creating something on paper, is I got to let myself get sucked into it. The curve, like the bar to barrier for entry for me on like any creative work starts really high, because starting is like always the hardest part, because I know there's going to be this like super discomfort uncomfortable phase of like, well, how does this guy look, how do I draw him, how does he fit here? And it's the same thing with music. It's like, where do I put this part, and how do I get from this part to this part? And then there's that kind of like middle road where you're like, all right, I got the bones, I got the structure. Now I'm building on it. Now I'm like excited to come back to it and tinker with it. And then there's that exit phase of like, final touches. This sucks. No, wait, it's okay. No, this is terrible. But as a kid, to answer your question, there was just way more time for that deep focus. And part of it is like, I think is like Neil Gaiman, the writer. I'm just repeating something I heard. I'm not super familiar with his work, but he was talking about his writing process. And I think he's the guy I'm thinking of, but he says he'll go sit in his gazebo outside, and he's allowed to do two things. He's allowed to do nothing, or he's allowed to write. And so he'll write, and then he'll do nothing and look around until doing nothing becomes insufferable. And he's like, all right, I'm going to write again. And I think that was the being a kid growing up in Marble Falls, was like, I could do nothing or I could play guitar.
Right.
It's like, I guess I'll do nothing until learning how to play a bar chord is like more appealing.
Well, do you think nowadays that we have less time, or we don't allow ourselves the time to let our minds drift?
Yeah, shit, it's both. Yeah, we got less time and we have way more distractions than ever. I'm not the first person breaking that news, but
Yeah.
we gotta like, we were talking about how we got like so many hustles, and we gotta turn everything into like a profitable, I gotta build an empire.
Right.
And how do I monetize this, combined with yeah, there's so many damn distractions now that it's like, how do I ever sit down for long enough to let this thing happen? That bar I was talking about of like getting started. Yeah, there's more competing for that bars, like to get over that barrier for entry than ever before.
Well, I mean, I guess now if you wanted to create a character, what's the impetus? Is it because you want to create a new project, or you feel like you have to, or just something sparks, your imagination, I guess?
Yeah, I guess what I've learned is if I'm going to generate anything, it's because it's an idea I've entertained for quite some time. It's like there's just like a flow of stuff at all times, and it's the ones that come back where you're like, "Damn, I've been thinking about that for a year. Maybe I ought to get on that." Like maybe
Mm-hmm.
maybe there's something to that one, and then you start working on it, and you're like, "Oh, this is cool." Kind of look at like creativity as like a bunch of buckets. There's like, here's this song, and here's this song, and here's this here's this like TV show, and here's this drawing, and here's this T-shirt I want to design. And as I go throughout the day, maybe like go to work or go do something else, more fuel or like stuff to dump into that bucket bubbles up. And I go home and I'm like, all right, add this to that bucket. And it's okay for me. It's just kind of my process. Like things slowly materialize.
Hmm.
Sometimes you get like the core of something, like a chorus for a song, and until you, I never sit down and write a song. I've done it like once where I'm just like, I know this song, boom, there it is, done. That's happened like once in my life, but usually it's like, I don't know, I think this is okay. What do you think? Yeah, but maybe try this. And if I didn't have the collaborative process that I have in some areas of my life, I'm not doing anything.
Right.
And it's like that with me. And like, I don't work out at home. I don't really write music at home. I need to be surrounded by other people that are doing it. And I'm like, all right, now I'm going, not like, that's just what feels right for me is I kind of need that core of other people nudging the thing further or like inspiring me and putting an effort to. And that's what's been really good for me.
But that's actually, showing a great level of self awareness and an incredible amount of drive in yourself. Knowing those things about yourself and surrounding yourself with the people that are going to push you.
Yeah, and just knowing that finally being at like some state of like, yeah, just do it. Whatever it is, it's like, yeah, just taking this massive expectation off yourself of like, this has got to be the best, instead of just being like, this is gonna be whatever it's gonna be,
Hmm.
and you don't know what that's gonna be, so let it happen. And I think that's true with a lot of things, not just creative stuff, but like maybe relationships. Like, man, stop putting these crazy expectations on yourself and other people, and try to let things evolve, and take shape, and find the beauty in that. Because you know how it is with songwriting. Sometimes the stuff that is like the dopest is like, yeah, I never would have thought of that, or I didn't think this song was going to go there. And this is something I wanted that I didn't know I wanted. And having this like death grip on what you have to be or what anything has to be for me is just, has just yielded nothing but pain.
How have you gotten yourself to this place? Because it seems like you're very okay with yourself, you're very self aware. How can other people get to that place? Is it something that's just an experience thing?
Thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
It depends on the day. It depends on, like, I'll tell you, like, just coming to this podcast was just a zero pressure thing. And I maybe thought for 15 seconds about it of like, what are you going to say? What are you going to do? How are you going to dress? And then there's ultimately like yeah, I'm sure I'm sure if I'm just me, it's going to be okay.
Hmm.
I don't want to try to, I think it comes from a point of like exhaustion in life of trying to perform for so long to win other people's approval with how I look or how what I do for a living, or um, from a place of just total defeat, probably, of like, I can't live this way anymore. I can't I can't try to, there's so little you have control over. And I think probably like the first thing that taught me that was just family, and seeing people in my family who I loved, who I wanted better relationships with, recognizing how little impact I had on how that was going to go. And that the only thing I ultimately is, you've heard this a million times, but the only thing you really have control over is yourself, how you react, what you do in any given moment. And even that is extremely challenging, right? It's like, oh, all I can do is what's right for me, and um, do the best I can do. And then you start realizing how hard that is. Like, oh, okay, I have dominion over myself. Wait, do I? Oh God, my life is in chaos. And I think a lot of it, maybe if you said like self awareness, or like so much of that going back to the kitchen started in this place of like, oh my God, I don't know anything. Um, so if I don't know how to hold my knife correctly, like the chef is showing me, even though I thought I did for the past several years, what else don't I know? And I think it was probably an experience that really like cut me open and sh- really let me start experiencing my feelings,
Hmm.
and everything that had like I had never wanted to deal with became something I needed to deal with, whether it was like problems with family or things I had done in my past that I didn't want to face. That I felt like I just couldn't run away anymore, and I needed to change my life. And I think what you might be leading me into is like I have really tried to be sober for it's been something for almost 7 years now. It's something I wanted even longer, and it was something that it it came from a place of total defeat and total lack of control over my life, and a place of just total misery, and like, hey, I'm willing to do anything to feel differently. I think in my early 30s I had a level of depression that was just totally unmanageable, and I would try anything to not feel that way anymore. And that included a lot of really unhealthy ways, like really unhealthy coping mechanisms, and a desire to just feel better, a desire to just like that's where it started. Like, what can I do? How can I how can I enjoy my life more? Or how can I stop barely making it through the day and just wanting to sleep? And I'd say I kind of felt that way initially 10 years ago, and it's been a slow, gradual road towards maybe this and maybe this. And you and I were talking before the podcast started of like, I've come away with this understanding that depression isn't binary. It's not on or off. It's not just I'm depressed or I'm not depressed. It's on a fluctuating scale from 0 to 100, and I've found a bunch of little things that can affect that scale 1% here and there. Some of it's medication, some of it's lifestyle. Uh, a lot of it ultimately comes down to my behavior and how I talk to myself, how I talk to other people. The like, do I pick up that piece of trash when I'm walking around in public? Like that. All those little things are just little boosters to the depression algorithm that gets it a little higher in the non-depressed direction. And some days it is down at like just down at the bottom, just like, I don't know how I'm going to make my bed today. There's two dishes in the sink. I do not have the energy to do it. And when you encounter that now, it's a different approach of like, and that's okay. That's how today is. Today you don't do the dishes in the sink, and today you don't make your bed, and it doesn't make you a bad person. And you kind of fucked up that interaction with the barista, and you were kind of impatient and a jerk. And sometimes that happens, and but there are definitely like fewer and fewer. And I guess what I'm saying is like, those things all add to things I did not used to have, like self esteem and confidence, and just like a general lack of shame that I used to carry around. And sure, that probably goes back to childhood, but I probably walked through most of my life with a profound sense of I'm no good. I'm not a good person. I'm not okay. I'm bad. Uh, and it was never it was never enjoyable to walk through life that way. That's not where I don't think any good creativity comes from. I don't, for me, I was also like romancing the tortured artist of like, oh, woe is me. This is where my art's going to come from. And I just don't feel that way at all anymore. In fact, more than anything, I do feel like, and there is a place for that. There is a place for when you get to those places to tap into and be like, this is going to come from anger, or this is going to come from sadness or despair. But it's totally also okay to be like, this one's coming from a place of joy or optimism or contentment in life. Like, right, tap into all those things. Did I answer the question? I feel
Yes, and I mean, oh my gosh, that was absolutely beautiful, and thank you for sharing that. It takes a lot of courage to do that, and like I was telling you, you can obviously tell with someone like yourself and being so candid about it that you have put in a lot of work. I can see that, and I'm speaking from experience because very much like yourself, I've struggled with depression and other issues that are similar, and I know how hard it is to to get to that place and
yeah.
be okay with yourself.
Well, I mean, you were kind of talking about like the impetus of it is like, I saw my dad died of this thing. He died of, and then I've got a brother who is a little younger than me, and he's done probably like 10 to 15 years a hard time. Just for people always want to know, like, what did he do? What he did was he's got, substance issues and mental issues, and that person has a really hard time in society. And so a string of misdemeanors turns into a felony, turns into just like getting caught in this cycle and getting stuck in this thing. And I was driven by such a place of fear initially of like, that's going to be me too. My brother has schizophrenia, and I saw my dad veering into schizophrenia towards the end of his life. And I thought, like, this is coming for me. This is gonna get me too. So on top of like shame and guilt, I already carried around of just like, I'm not enough. This like general sense of needing constant validation. There was also this sense of my life, my doom is impending because I see my family being taken out by substance and lifestyle, and it terrified me to no end. And I did feel hopeless for a point in my life where I'm just like, this is going to get me too, and I'm not going to be able to have any happiness or family. I'm not going to be able to create genuine bonds and strong relationships with people. I'm destined to suffer the way these men have because it's genetic. And I really fell into that for a long time. And there was a part of me that was like, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to burn it all down if you feel that way and just like get on the trend with your family, or are you going to try to turn things around? And if so, how the hell do you even do that? What does that look like?
Was there anybody that you looked to for inspiration, or was it something that you just kind of pulled yourself up from your bootstraps and did it yourself?
No, I definitely hit your classic rock bottom. I had my life experience where I couldn't take it anymore, and I, um, despite my best efforts, had just more misery than I could tolerate, and I was willing to try anything.
I completely understand.
Yeah,
And thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that.
But that's just life, and that's how I look at it now. Is like, man, like life is such a weird thing. Like, what makes me different from my brother? How did it end up differently for he and I? And does everybody have the same chance in life? I don't think so. I think everybody rolls the dice and gets a totally different result, a totally different sets of abilities and disabilities, and it's like really brutal for some people. And people like my brother, I'm like, what is there hope for him? What can he do at this point? I do feel like it's not like something I can affect. And again, like kind of talking about um control, it's like I guess I can affect my own life to the best of my ability. And if he sees that and it's something he wants, maybe I'll have something to offer him. I don't know.
Well, I certainly hope that it does, kind of make the wheels turn a little bit for him.
Yeah, and I've struggled with it too. It hasn't been totally consistent. Um but it just showed me, it's just going back to like talking about the band and having like guys to bounce ideas off of, and or like the gym where there's community and you see other people working out, knowing other people who are doing it and seeing like, all right, this guy can do it. Like, okay, same as being in the kitchen, like, well, this guy's putting up those plates. It's like, okay, I guess I can do it. There's some kind of example to follow. So yeah, it's like having community and seeing other people that can do it and just being willing to be like, hey, I got this problem, I want to work on it, is just where so much, even the band started as like, Ryan, I got these songs, I don't know what to do with them. He's like, let me help you out. If it weren't for those guys, again, I'd never finish a song. If it weren't for like, now I'm getting way better. I want to give myself some credit. Like I'm getting way better at like managing the business that is my life, and like showing up to places more on time, more often, or just little things that make me feel like an adult. It's like, okay, I can do this life, I can do this thing. But man, those weren't consistent in my life just, several years ago. And to answer your question of like, what if somebody wanted to confront these things, like, yeah, man, just reaching out for help is like the first thing. That was the first thing I ever did, was like ask somebody for help. And I've gotten way more comfortable with that in every aspect of my life, even at my like day job, where I'm like, hey, man, how do I do this thing on the computer? Whereas before in life, it was like, no, I can't let anybody know. I don't know exactly what I'm doing at all times.
Oh yeah, no, I've struggled with that for years. For example, I'm back in guitar lessons now, even though I've been playing for 25 something years. And the reason being, my theory is all over the place. But part of the reason why I didn't want to go into lessons was because I was afraid to admit that.
Yeah.
And when now I'm in lessons with this guy, and he's phenomenal. I love him, best teacher I've ever had. And I told him that, and he was just like, "Do you know how many musicians have told me the same things, or have the same things that they're worried about? I mean, it's unbelievable." But he's like, "At least you're here now,
Yeah.
you know." And it was just having, being okay with not knowing everything,
Mm-hmm.
And I was exposing myself a little bit to him, which I never would have done. But now, because I'm older, and like yourself, I've grown, and I've learned that it's okay to not know everything. And then I felt comfortable enough to actually go forth getting
Yeah.
lessons again.
Well, it's freedom.
Hmm.
It's freedom in a sense to be like, whoa, I don't understand this, but I can in a greater degree.
Hmm.
I'm going to allow myself to expand in this place
Hmm.
instead of being like, nope, I gotta do this on my own, or I gotta um, be the best at this right away. Like it's freedom to be like, show me these scales.
Yeah, and part of it was, it was being self-conscious. It was complete and utter embarrassment, because I'm like, I've been playing for 25 years, and yet I can't really speak the language as good as other people can, and I can't communicate with other musicians the way that I should be able to. And it's just like, you're the one that's imposing all of these different things.
Yeah.
I should have just asked.
Yeah.
You know?
And then sometimes it's okay to like not communicate with other, how our language is. It's like, hey, can you give me a boo 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 ka boo 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 ka boo boo boo?
Right.
Or it's like you're showing a song you wrote, and it's like, what chord is that? And you're like, I don't know. You got this here and
Yep.
this here. It's like, I don't know. I just found this one. I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
Like, and then the other guys are like gathering around you like you're working under a car. And they're trying to put their fingers where yours are on the fretboard, and like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's how I've always been. And if somebody were to have called out like, "Oh, let's play like a jam on like the key of E or something," I would be like once we get
Yeah.
into it, I could do it. But start doing all of that stuff. I just wanted to have the ability to communicate more with other musicians. So now I'm getting more to that place.
Yeah.
Even though I've been playing for 25 years, and then actually it was so sweet. My guitar teacher came out to one of my shows recently, and he probably thinks I'm coming from a place almost of just being a beginner,
Yeah.
because of the things we normally talk about. And he saw me play, and he was like, "Holy shit, what?" Because I'm used to, as a musician, I've learned almost by like making little patterns out of everything, like little geometric patterns. And I like to think I'm a good rhythm player too, and I play solos and stuff. But it's more putting the names on everything.
Yeah.
Once he started telling me, "Oh, this is what this is called," or "That's what that," I'm like, I know what that is.
You start connecting the
Yeah,
dots.
and that's why
Yeah.
I'm in lessons.
That's what cooking was like for me,
Hmm.
because there was stuff I had innately kind of encountered and understood. And then when somebody who knew everything was like, this is how to properly chiffonade, or like this is how an emulsion works. Like little dots started getting connected, and I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
The puzzle started to make more sense.
Oh yeah, and then just the more you work with people over the years, and you start picking things up, even things that aren't your native instrument, I guess. Like if I'm trying to communicate to my drummer, like, "Oh, do like a disco beat here," and like, I don't know, like hang on like the hi-hat or whatever. Like that's just from years and years of playing in bands. So now I'm able to communicate that language a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
You
Yeah,
know.
I think I still sometimes I still struggle with like basic things like this is on the one and this one's anticipated.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'm still like calling the wrong one and stuff, and like, all right. I've also learned that like I just get better people than me around me in
Absolutely.
everything. Like I'll write the 3 chord structure
Hmm.
and then I'll show it to Ryan in the band and I'll be like, "Can you do some like widdly guitars over this?" And he's like, "What about this? What about this?" And I'm like, "Yep, okay, my work here is done."
Yeah, and that's what's kind of cool about being a musician, or just musicians in general. They're very, I guess, cool with that kind of thing. With that
Yeah.
kind of communication.
Yeah.
You don't have to be super schooled necessarily to communicate something like that, and that's what I like about the music community.
Yeah, and you pick stuff up from everybody just like as you, because there's always one guy in the band that's into theory and
Hmm.
he'll tell you what you're actually talking about and it's like, "Yep, that's what I meant." You're just getting little bits and pieces from everybody and the puzzle expands and yeah, that's part of the fun.
Yeah, that's what I liked what you just said about, surrounding yourself with people who are better than you. I try to do that all the time
Yeah.
because otherwise you never grow.
Well, that's the gym metaphor, right? It's like, "Damn,
Hmm.
look at that guy's traps. Like,
Yep.
what's that boy doing?" Dude, what are you eating? What are you like? How'd you get those?
Oh yeah.
You know?
If I'm curious about anything, I will go up to you and ask you about it. There's this woman, and she probably thought I was hitting on her. Like, I was at the gym, and I'm like, "Your abs are amazing. What do you do in order to get that?" And
Yeah.
she was like, well, I do crunches," and I'm like, "Okay, cool, but tell me more." I was not hitting on her, but I'm just curious. I'm naturally curious.
Yeah, and people who know what you don't are generally excited to share it with you, like, "Oh my God, please let me tell you about this thing that I'm really into that I'm just walking around all day hoping somebody will mention to me."
The easiest way to get people to like you is for you to ask questions
Oh
about
my
other
God,
people.
that's something that's taken so much pressure off me in life is like, I don't got to be interesting here. I don't got to be like the the smartest guy in the room. Just like get other people talking about themselves cuz I don't like, believe it or not, like I don't like attention for the most part. Playing on stage is different because it's, you just get into it and
Yeah.
it's something different, but like being in an intimate environment and people like, "Daniel, tell us about yourself." I'm like,
All right.
oh no." Please, please don't.
But it does take the pressure off. I mean, I can get anybody to talk to me, like even people that are quiet because, I'll see something on their shirt like, "Oh, I've seen that character somewhere. Like, can you
Yeah.
tell me, like, what is that from?"
Oh,
You know?
that's the best way in is a band t-shirt or like a anime shirt or something. I'll be like, "Hell yeah, dude. Like now you're instant best friends."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's like it's finding that common ground, and I you can get anybody to talk to you because they love talking about themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a great way to break the ice. But Daniel, thank you so much
Oh,
for coming all the way over here. I probably talked your ear off, but I do, before we go, I want everybody to know where to follow you. So if you can tell everybody your social info.
yeah, sure. I'll just focus on, I guess, two.
Okay.
Just if you want to follow my band on Instagram, it's at Follow the Pride, and my personal is Daniel McGuffey XO, just first and last name XO. And then I'd love if anybody followed us on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever their preferred music streaming platform is. We have 2 songs that we've just released in the past month, Crazier and Do It Again. So those are the newest ones. Go check them out.
Thank you again so much.
Yeah, thank you. I really had fun talking.
I'm so glad. It was a blast. But everybody back at home, make sure to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you can know anytime a new episode comes out. And we will see you next time.